and welcome to African Voices Radio. My name is Baile Jallo. Today, we delve into the rich tapestry of Lesotho, a landlocked kingdom known for its stunning landscape, vibrant culture, and resilient people. Nestled within the heart of Southern Africa, Lesotho has a history as captivating as its mountainous terrain. Last month, we all heard what Donald Trump said about Lesotho, saying, quote unquote, the country that nobody has ever heard of. Not just that, weeks later, he has imposed 50% tariff on the country, the highest in the African continent. Today, I am honored to be joined on this episode by Lesotho's former Minister of Home Affairs and Education, Mokhele Moletsane, a scholar who ventured to China for his studies. Mr. Moletsane brings a unique perspective on the interactions of education, diplomacy, and personal growth. Hello, Mr. Moletsane. Good afternoon, and welcome to our episode of African Voices Radio.
Good afternoon, my brother, and good afternoon to your fellow listeners.
Thank you very much. So let's kickstart. So could you just discuss your experience studying in China and how it has shaped your perspective on global affairs?
Oh, thank you so much. I began my academic journey here in China in 2007 as I was pursuing my master's in international business at the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China. This is a British university with a campus here in China. Okay. And for me, this was really a very unique experience, studying in a British university, but operating in China. And of course, it offered a blend of Western and Chinese educational approaches, which I think really prepared me to face the global world.
Can I ask why China? You mentioned that you've blended the Western education, and if you look, from my experience, is that many in Africa or in other parts of the world, they don't see China as a destination, especially for education.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have to admit that I was on sponsorship by one of our friends to the Kingdom of Lesotho, but I saw China as a great opportunity for me, primarily because of China as an emerging economy and having this growing global influence. And therefore, I thought it would give me an opportunity, a first-hand opportunity, experience to have a world dynamic understanding, especially of business and economy. So China, in a way, also helped me to kind of bridge the cultural and academic perspectives in the world. And I thought this will be valuable for my career.
So before we jump into to the tariffs, the years that you've spent here, do you see it as you expected, or what has been the case?
Indeed, it has been a very wonderful experience. From example, from the cultural background, China has a lot to offer. They have a rich culture, they have a rich history, and the opportunity to learn another important language, which I'm not that fluent in Chinese, but at least the opportunity to learn one of the most emerging languages in the world, which is Mandarin, which is used for business primarily. And of course, learning about the rich history, which runs more than 2,000 years of the Chinese people. And of course, in the academic front, China is really rich in terms of education, especially around international business, around manufacturing, around industry. As an emerging economy, it creates a platform relevant for one to study, especially in the contemporary times. So I would say that the quality of education offered here in China is quite high. There are a number of universities which always make it in the top list of the best universities in their rankings, like my current university now, Peking University, and many other institutions in China. And I want to emphasize that the quality of education is quite high. The professors are good. Practicality side of things, it's very important. If you look at the tariffs now, they are hitting China a lot. You can see the geopolitical issues. It's all about the US and the China. This is the best time for students to learn about the practicality of some of these sometimes theoretical maybe philosophical issues, but China always offers that platform for us to explore, practically explore some of these concepts. But again, I want to say that comparatively, China is still affordable in terms of fees, tuition fees, and living expenses basically compared to maybe the Western world. Life is still affordable here. I was here, 2007, but surprisingly, when I come back to China after so many years, things are still affordable. As a student, you can really survive. They have good health services for students. They have other cultural activities, sports in abundance. So it offers a good environment for somebody who really wants to concentrate on their study and learn. So it has a lot to offer.
Thank you very much for shedding a light on your experience in China, studying here. If you've just joined us, this is African Voices Radio, hosted by myself, Bailo Jallo. Today, we are joined by the former Minister of Education and Home Affairs, Mokhele Moletsane from Lesotho. So we are discussing Lesotho today as we've seen the tariffs hitting many countries across the world. Just last month, US President Donald Trump labeled the country that no one has ever heard of. And for those who don't know, Lesotho is a very small country compared to other countries in the continent. But having said that, the country has been hit the highest. That is, Lesotho has been hit with 50% of tariff. So, Mr. Moletsane, what are your views on the 50% tariff imposed by Donald Trump and its impacts on Lesotho?
Of course, Trump reciprocal, tariffs have been an issue of debate amongst policymakers, government officials, different governments, and most importantly, economists themselves, whether indeed this makes any economic sense. But I would say maybe for Trump, he is speaking for his own constituency, the American people, trying to convince them that America has been, in his own words, somehow taken advantage of by different economics in the world. But having said that, I would say Lesotho is a small country, as you said. The economy is quite small, and we have this over-dependence on exports to the US, particularly in the textile and apparel sector.
Okay.
And of course, we benefited from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, and this actually helped us to have a better access to the duty-free access market of the US. But now we are facing with this reality that we have been hit hard by the 50% tariffs. Definitely, economically, this is going to impact us because now our products will be quite expensive going into the American market, and that will definitely affect our production back at home. We'll see most of the factories close down, and that implies that people will lose jobs, and that will also have spilling over effects to other sectors, transport sector, retail, because the textile industry has been one of the main employers in Lesotho. From 2002, we used to have around 40,000 workers working in the textile industries in Lesotho. So with this tariff, and of course the situation was, really bad after COVID. Now it has been exacerbated by Trump's tariffs of 50% on Lesotho. So clearly, we are going to see some of or most of these factories close down. People are going to lose jobs, and we are going to face social consequences because of these tariffs.
Talking of people are going to lose jobs and there will be consequences for this. Last year, Lesotho exported 237 million pounds, dollars rather, to the United States, which is about 10% of Lesotho's GDP. That is a huge amount. And you are a former minister. What do you think the current government should do to negotiate? Because we've had Trump saying he is ready to negotiate with countries. He has been negotiating with even bigger countries or larger countries across the world. You know, so for a country like Lesotho, how do you approach these tariffs, and what needs to be done?
It has been really difficult. I'm fully aware that the government has been trying to reach out to the American government, but it has been really difficult. And of course, we do appreciate that we're an independent sovereign country, but we are a small country. Our influence might not be that significant. But I would say that the government should keep on trying talking to the American government. And I hope that the discussions they are having will bear fruit, provided that this is in the interest of the United States. We should also understand that within this multipolar world, where you see that the emergence of geopolitical issues taking center stage, it might also be difficult for smaller states or economies like Lesotho. However, I think domestically, we now need to advise ourselves on how to break this dependency on export, especially the textile industry. So for me, I would say that we need to speed up the already, journey that we have embarked on, which is trying to diversify our economy. We have the SACU, which is the regional common monetary area composed of Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, South Africa, Namibia, and we have to try improve our trade with these countries. And of course, SADC as a regional economic and political bloc, we need also to try to diversify our economy and try to compete within this region. And of course, the African Free Trade, area, which is the African Union Free Trade Area, we must leverage this and take advantage of this. But as we work on the structural challenges of our economy, we should really work hard on diversifying our products on the basis of what we can do, what we have already as a country. This is very important that whatever industrial policy we embark on takes care of our comparative advantage, which will in turn be our competitive advantage. Maybe we have been trapped for a very long time into the textile industry because of the AGOA, which was actually giving us a leverage into the US market. But this time around, we need to look inward and say, what is it that we can do? What is it that we can offer as a country, which is unique, that we can produce relatively cheaper, but also provide quality services or products to the African or Southern African market, to the African market. But also having said that, we also have other trading partners like the European Union. We still have other countries that we do business with. And I think we should try to strike more trade deals with these countries or with these regions and strengthen our position in terms of international trade.
Talking of diversification and also having other partners like the European Union, we've seen in the last 20 years or 30 years, China has been flexing its muscles as well in the continent of Africa, which I believe Lesotho might be the case as well. Looking at that with these tariffs that Trump has already imposed, and yourself here as a former minister studying in China, or as somebody who has visited countries like China and others across the world. So how can Lesotho use its relationship with China to boost its economy and also development efforts, especially given external pressures like the US tariffs?
In fact, it goes back to the point I said. I must mention that specifically China now. China has been our partner international issues, economy, we are definitely working with the Chinese, but I feel like we have not really leveraged this very strategic relationship with China. And I will go back to my point and say diversification. What products, what unique products we have, or even services, if you like, that we can actually trade between China and Lesotho. So like I'm saying, we have to move away from textile, look other areas of cooperation with the Chinese. And for now, I know that the Chinese have a good relationship with us, not only Lesotho, but Africa. So, and they're open for more trade with not only Lesotho, but Africa, the South, as it's called, and many other countries. So I'm certain that China, with our strategic and friendly relations we have, we can do more business with them, provided we now get our house in order and say, how do we diversify our products?
You are from the Democratic Congress Party, which currently you are the opposition. Had it been you are in power, what would you have done differently that the current government hasn't done yet?
Well, the DC, as a party which has been in government for some time, has got this experience. Experience is very important in understanding international trade dynamics and even diplomacy. So I feel like that currently we are not so strong in trying to negotiate with the world. So I feel like there's a gap there. I have seen some of the initiatives by the government of Lesotho, but I feel like there are some gaps there. And I feel like a party like DC would have handled the situation much better.
Speaking of some gaps, sorry to interrupt you there, because the government is not here or are not here to defend themselves. But speaking of gaps, from my own understanding, is it not just a continuation of what you've left behind the current government? It's just kind of like continuing of what you've left. And had it been you were the one in power, it would have been the same thing happening.
Well, with Trump, maybe it will be the same thing, but I'm saying the continuity of the previous policies, which actually I really realized that there will be a problem with the AGOA in the future. Every time we go to the US, we have to go and beg and ask for them to renew AGOA. It has always said to us, you need to diversify your economy. And unfortunately, right now, the rain is it's pouring really hard on us.
So are you saying this is something that you had expected coming? You had seen it coming before?
Indeed, but maybe not in this magnitude. But successive governments, they know that they've always been having this challenge of going back to the years to try to get AGOA renewed. Some countries have lost AGOA because of political issues. If you look at Uganda, they were excluded from AGOA and other, agreements, relations because of their internal political issues. But we've always known that much as the textile industry has been very strategic and contributed to our economy, we had to move as a country and rapidly engage into diversifying our economy and looking for other trade partners. So this is what I'll emphasize. I feel like there was some kind of a discord in policy implementation in terms of industrial policy. And I feel like from that end, the current government, which I know they are trying, but I am not personally convinced that they do have the experience and the ability to actually aggressively implement these policies, which are there in government. You see, the challenge of our politics is that these days they are dominated by populism, and the leaders kind of get their eyes off the real issues that really emanate even from the national policies. So I believe, or I feel like personally, this current situation requires an experienced political party, an experienced leadership to face the challenging world as it is.
Okay, thank you very much for shedding light on that. Let's move on a little bit, but still under the same topic, really. Lesotho operates under a kind of like political system with a constitutional monarchy. So how does this system influence governance and decision making in the country?
Well, of course, our model of governance is a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy. We have a number of political parties in Lesotho, and I think we are okay with this kind of model so far. But you will recall that 2014 we had some political challenges back from which triggered a very important process of national reforms. This being economic reforms, political reforms, and media reforms. We are not yet there because I understand now the omnibus bill, which addresses this reform, is still with the Senate. It is not yet completed. But once it is completed, we are hopeful that we will reform our system of governance, which is not perfect at all.
So how influential is the monarchy in the country?
Culturally influential, it's a constitutional monarchy. The people of Lesotho love their king. They love the royal family. They have a role to play in society culturally. But you know that as a constitutional monarchy, politically, no much influence. But this is a very important part of our cultural architecture that we have our king, the people trust into the king. They believe in this cultural, setup. But now the politicians, that's where we need to perfect ourselves. Lesotho, we have been there in this game of democracy. We have had elections. We have had our own challenges from a one-party state to military juntas, back to multi-party democracy. But it is not perfect. And this is where I feel like Lesotho as a nation, they need to sit back and say, what is it that we have been doing in the last, so many years since we gained independence, and try to perfect the political system? Well, we are now in a coalition dispensation since 2012, which has been very challenging. From 2012 up to date, we have had 5 different governments, always changing. There are always conflicts within the coalition partners. So there is no stability, as you say, but a different kind of instability, compared to the previous years when it was military, coups. But indeed, it is evident that the coalition dispensation we have just entered in is not really stable. And the question is how, given that you can see that in the foreseeable future, the voting patterns of the voters, the electorate in Lesotho, for some time, we are going to see this kind of coalition arrangement. But the question is how to ensure that this new dispensation works for us as a people. You can see that we are the first one to experience this kind of governance in the region since 2012. South Africa, they just had the first coalition government. And you can see it's really challenging. It is really challenging with so many political parties in government, with divergent interests, the power dynamics, the interests, the philosophies. It's really creating a challenge for leadership in that country. But you can see, even in the region in Southern Africa, that the voting patterns, they suggest or they tell you that in the near future or in the next 20 years, most of the countries in the region will be going into coalition governments. And the question is, how do you ensure that this inclusivity doesn't affect efficiency in governance?
Yeah. Thank you very much for shedding a light on that. Before I come on to that, if you've just joined us, this is African Voices Radio. My name is Baile Jallow, and today we are discussing Lesotho. And I'm joined by Mokhele Moletsane, who is a former Minister of Education and Home Affairs in Lesotho. We are discussing Lesotho today after Donald Trump imposed a 50% tariff, the highest in the African continent. So, Mr. Moletsane, again, you are talking of the power dynamics of Lesotho. You've shed light on that. Earlier, you touched on the region, the SADC region, in terms of kind of like doing trade with the SADC region. I'm just wondering, what are the opportunities that exist within Lesotho to enhance its economic ties with other African nations and the global community? We know that the SADC region is one of the regions that you are targeting in order to kind of like do business with or to compete with. But, even within the SADC region, Lesotho is a small country compared to the others. let alone in the whole African continent. So how do you, what are the strategies that you are planning in order to make sure, like, look, we are a small country, but you know what, we are here and we are here to survive.
Yeah, that's very good. You have to convince people I am here with what? And with what means, what is it that it is so unique that you can offer the whole region? What is it that you can offer them? And it goes back to my point that it has to be our comparative advantage.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that we can produce effectively and share with the other countries in Africa? So we have to identify these industries and to work on those industries, focus on those industries instead of just going haphazardly doing everything that we have been told that economically it is going to work, including textiles. So, for example, we know that Lesotho is endowed with good or quality water, natural resources.
Mm.
Within this area, we need to develop our water industry. We have a bilateral agreement with South Africa. We are exporting water to South Africa in exchange for royalties. But what other industries within the water industries can we actually develop? Agribusiness, sports, water sports industries, many other industries. What unique products or services can we actually develop within this natural resource that we have? We haven't explored that as a country, to be honest. We haven't really gone deeply into our capabilities to explore these areas. Lesotho also offers, we have the diamond industry. Of course, it is facing challenges now with the artificial diamonds and the market, but we need to again to say within this existing industry, how can we improve our mining industry? Can we add value to this product, to this important natural resource that we've been endowed with? And other tourism, for example, we need to really explore our tourism sector because we have the beautiful mountains, we have clean water, we have these beautiful sceneries. And this is our strength. This is our strength within the region that we can actually exchange with the others in the region. And many other products which are uniquely, viable in Lesotho. Many years ago, we never thought that in Lesotho you could produce high quality apples, for example. But this project that I've just highlighted to you about, which under the diversification project, we know that Lesotho can actually produce quality apples. What other products can we produce? What other produce can we produce given our unique, geographical location? What is it that we can offer on the basis of our comparative advantage? So clearly, this is the direction that I think we should look into as a country. We are still a small country, we're a small economy, and we have to start somewhere. And where do we start? What we have, what we can do best, and which is unique for us. Therefore, that explains our effectiveness in the region.
We've seen in recent years, months, the SADC region also facing challenges. We've seen countries like Mozambique, what happened there recently, and also for the past 10 years, we've seen what's been happening in neighboring Zimbabwe and other countries alike. So my question to you, how do regional dynamics within Africa impact Lesotho's political decision and partnership? And what does this mean for the country's stability and progress as well?
As members of the SADC, the Southern African Development Community, we have benefited a lot as a member in the regional bloc. And SADC is one of the most vibrant and strong regional body in Africa.
Okay.
And we do experience challenges within our country's political instability, but I believe that as a region, there's progress in terms of political tolerance, democracy. I think as a region we are there compared to other regions. You rarely hear of military coups in the region these days. So there is that international, regional integration in the region. And I'm hopeful that with the few incidences that we have seen in Mozambique, And we are happy that it's quiet now, though they're still facing some challenges with with the discovery of some natural resources there. External forces also come and try to destabilize the economy. But I'm certain that the region, the integration of SADC as a region on political issues, on economic issues, is profound, and it is a hopeful case. And the young people, of course, in the region, you can see that they believe in the region and they want to take part in their politics. And of course, with the current leadership, there is some effort to create stability within the SADC region. SADC deploying forces in Mozambique. SADC has been there in Lesotho trying to help our brothers to have stability and realize economic development. And many other regions and many other countries, this regional bloc has played a really important role. And of course, bilateral relations, between and among these, countries, it's quite good. There are no really hostilities that you can actually say in this southern region. There are really these serious hostilities, or there are this really serious, security threats. The leadership under SADC, they are working together, and therefore there is really hope.
As a former minister, many young people these days, or citizens of various countries across the continent, see some of these institutions as toothless institutions. For example, like SADC, ECOWAS, the African Union. Many people see those in government or ministers being out of touch, not knowing what is going on in their countries, or not knowing what is the reality on ground. When it comes to the institutions on paper, they are pretty good. Everything looks nice. But when it comes to actions, they are nowhere to be seen. And also we rely on external forces. So you mentioned earlier, like SADC is far better compared to other regions where there are coup d'etats, which in West Africa recently there has been many coup d'etats, but those coup d'etats, according to reports, they've been led to like many people or the military are saying, because those in power are being out of touch. They don't know what is happening in reality. So basically, we have no choice but to kind of like do coup d'etats, because either the constitution or there has been a coup d'etat on the constitution first before the military coup d'etat took over. So, as a former minister, what are your thoughts on this? What needs to be done in order for this to be an end? Because in Africa right now, this is not what we need. It's like we are turning back to the 19th century.
Yeah, I understand there are challenges. People are frustrated sometimes. Our institutions may not seem as strong as we wanted, but like I said, there's progress. There's progress. If you look at 20 years ago in the SADC region, there's a difference in Africa. The interaction, amongst the African leaders, the African nations, it has actually improved. This is a learning issue. It has to be understood to be a journey of development. We may not compare
ourselves. A journey of how long? For some of our African countries, there are some that regained independence 50, 60 years ago. If I may set an example, my country, Sierra Leone, we regained our independence 64 years ago. But yet still, basic necessities are still lacked. And that's the case for many African countries.
Yeah, it is true, but it is not always about leadership alone. There are other structural issues that you need to look at: the economy, for example, the resources that we have, and of course the politics. But I'm saying Africa as a continent now, which is a beacon of hope, is getting there, and we don't have to give in or give up on our own continent. We have to be participants in our own politics. We have to be participants in our own economy. Much as now, everybody is furious with Trump, he has actually created another moment for reflection in the continent. But as the leaders try to work hard for the continent, there are some disappointments, but the young people should also be part of the economy. Here in China, there is leadership, example. There are young people. These people are determined to be part of the development of your country. Sometimes I understand the youth. I'm still not that old. I'm still young. I understand my brothers and sisters are frustrated about the political system. But I always say, Are you part of perfecting this system, or you're just there complaining? So there is also this, mindset in Africa where young people really don't want to partake in the development of the country. They just want benefits, and they believe that, we go for elections, and then after elections, it means everything is going to be okay. They have to take action in their own way within the academic institutions, social institutions, individuals, our experts. Everybody must come together to say we want to build our country. We want our country, our region to develop and then of course we be successful like other nations in the world. So I appreciate their challenges, but I am also stressing that having been in government, I know it is challenging, but I know that there are also opportunities. But I feel like all sectors of society should play a role and try to understand the uniqueness of your culture, the uniqueness of your economy, the uniqueness of your country. Sometimes people just say, oh, we are here in Lesotho, but the South Africans, they are having it there, they are okay. But you need to understand your unique situation. And then it should inform the reforms, whether it's educational reforms, economic reforms, political reforms. We need to pause as a nation. Each and every nation needs to pause and say, where are we? Where do we have to get to go? Where do you need to go? And we need to move together as a nation. Yes, leadership is important, but you can't really, pin your hopes.
So are you saying we shouldn't only cast the blame on the leaders, but also the blame should be shared by everyone else?
I wouldn't say a blame as such, but we need to share the challenges and grow out together in these challenges as a people. That is very important. And this is very important in terms of mindset, how we think as a people.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much for shedding a light on that. So drawing from your experience in navigating domestic and international challenges, so what advice will you offer to the next generation of leaders in Lesotho, the young people, who are out there, who sometimes are kind of like hopeless, who think there is no future out there?
Let them take part in the development of the country, whether education, political, social, but let them be part of the solutions. And again, I'm not suggesting that they should sit back, not hold our leaders or politicians accountable. That is their role as young people because it is their future. So I'm really inviting everybody to be part of the solution and not despair because that is the only country you have. That is the only continent you have. And also it is very important that the young people should realize that innovation is very important. And these are the young people we expect to come up with innovation, whether in technology or any other sector, technological innovation, innovation in administration, so that at the end of the day we can catch up or come closer to the other developed countries. But for me right now, reflecting with my country, I feel like yes, the politicians have been there, but we have not really engaged other sectors of society. For example, our experts, our universities. What are they doing for the country? Is there a partnership, a strategic partnership between the elites and academic institutions, our scientists? What are they? So I think as politicians, we also have the duty to create that platform.
Is that not to say because probably you've not heard from those people, maybe because the opportunities are limited, or maybe because
we have to create
places it's about who you know, it's not about what you know.
It is the duty of the leadership and the politician to create such opportunities. And in fact, those opportunities do exist because we need this technical know-how. We need this knowledge. Most of our experts, they're all over the world. Here we are suffering a serious problem for brain training in Africa and in Lesotho also. And I feel like as leadership, we have to say, yes, we got the political power through the people, through elections, but this has to be kind of a coalition of citizens to say, how do we carry on with our struggle to develop our countries? I will make an example with China. China, during the opening up, they didn't have many educated people here. They didn't have many scientists here. but they deliberately send their own young people to study abroad in the United States, in the UK, and then those people are now back developing their own countries. Even to the jealousy of some of these countries in the Western world, they say, no, they are stealing our technologies, but they have smart people. Somehow the political elite, they have somehow, come up with policies to integrate the know-how, the knowledge that has been acquired by these people were sent out deliberately so to go and get skills and knowledge and then come to develop their own country. So this is the kind of mentality that I think we should actually embark on back at home.
Having said that, there are many diasporans, especially of Southern African region in the West, like in places like in England and other parts of Europe and the United States. So what would be your message to those people? For example, you've got so many from Zimbabwe, like in the UK, the nurses, the doctors, people like from Lesotho, South Africa, and other countries, you name them. So what's your message to those people who are thinking, look, there is no better place to be than to be in Europe or the United States? What's out there back home for them?
Very important. The diaspora is very important, and I would say, emphasize my point and say the leadership should really take care of that. It should know that their diaspora is very important because these people, they have the fund, they have the money, they have the knowledge, they have the experience. But we have to, some of them left because of terrible wars. Some of them left because things were not okay at home. But you need to, as a government, say, we need to beg to come and develop your own country. And they must have deliberate policies of diaspora engagement in that country. I'm so happy that a few years ago in Lesotho, under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we now have this department which is directly dedicated to the diaspora. But what role do they play in the economy? What is it that, what space can they play strategically as they pursue their careers wherever they are? But in terms of economic development, you would be amazed that in the old days, Lesotho diaspora was made up of the mine workers in South Africa. And the amount of remittances into Lesotho from the mining workers, I'm talking about ordinary men, Basotho men who just went to the South African mines, they joined there and worked there. But the amount of economy they brought in back into Lesotho was really massive. And immediately after the mining industry challenges in South Africa, you could see that our GDP went down. So it says we should again revisit our policies and say how to engage the diaspora, wherever they are, to have a meaningful economic impact in our country, in our respective countries. So this is quite important. You can imagine now how many Zimbabweans are out of Zimbabwe. They have the knowledge, they have they have the money, they can do something, but we need a deliberate policy within our governments or within our political system to ensure that we take advantage of their existence as sons and daughters of the soil.
Thank you very much for that.
Of course, like I said, we must make them comfortable. We must convince them to come home.
Talking of convincing, we've got less than 5 minutes to wrap up, but convincing is one thing, to come home, but coming home and to have a strategy or to see like there is a plan or there is a method or there is that mechanism where when you come home, there is something where you can start. It's another thing, but that's a food for thought for another day, So for yourself here, you are doing your PhD right now in China. So what are your long-term and short-term plans after post-studies?
Really, I can't say, but I will definitely go back home after 2 years, and I hope I'll be back home, and then there will also be some role to play, whether in politics. I'll see. I'm not certain really, but enriching yourself in terms of knowledge is quite important, especially here in China. It is very important. So I believe that there will be some space in society for me to play my part as a citizen on the basis of what I would have actually garnered here in China.
Well, Mr. Moletsane, thank you very much for joining me on African Voices Radio today. Your insight is very, very essential for many in the diaspora and back home. Yeah, so for those who might have just joined us, that was Mokhele Moletsane, the former Minister of Education and Home Affairs in Lesotho. He's currently doing his PhD in China. We were discussing Lesotho today after Donald Trump imposed 50% tariff earlier this month on the small kingdom in Southern Africa. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next week, you have a good time, and thank you very much, Mr. Moletsane.